and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Any case, so what is happening at this point is eviction moratoriums are coming to an end around the country. There has not been at this point the mass eviction crisis that I was predicting. If you want to have a look, I have a link to it from Eviction Lab. This is an ongoing chart that shows evictions in various states, in various cities. And while there has been something of an uptick, it has not reached what it was before 2020. So there has been an uptick in evictions, but it's not the enormous crisis that I expected, and I'm glad to hear that. Although again, we're still all kind of reeling. I have no idea what kind of backlogs courthouses are looking at this point. In New York, they are going to be on January 15th, a couple days from now. The moratorium is going to be expiring, and it's an interesting story from Law 360 regarding this and what they believe can happen. Now, what I didn't realize is that there is a huge difference between tenants living in the city itself and then outside the city. So most eviction hearings are taking place online. And what they're doing is if you are a low-income tenant, you can be matched with an attorney. It turns out that 80% of tenants who have legal representation avoid eviction. Now, that could mean that they still end up leaving their homes, but that they are able to negotiate leaving more on their own terms. They can, a cash for keys situation, or just saying, look, I'll be out on this date. Let's avoid the eviction so they don't have an eviction on their record. So that's important. But if you're outside New York City, if you're in the surrounding area, you don't have those kinds of protections. And my guess is that is true in a lot of areas. I can tell you in Chicago, for example, Chicago has landlord-tenant protection ordinances. I believe Mount Prospect, one of our suburbs, does, but the rest do not. And for example, if you are in Illinois, or you don't necessarily, your landlord may be required to do certain things for you, but there's no recourse that you have against your landlord in many cases if the landlord does fail to meet his or her responsibilities. And for example, in some states or some areas, you can withhold rent, or you can put rent into an escrow account until repairs are made. You really can't do that in Illinois. So it does really depend on where you're living. It's upticking now, and my guess is that we'll have a better idea of the fallout and what's going to be happening to people probably later on this year. I do know, once again, that there's been a lot of single home sales to investors who are going to be renting. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the rental market coming on this year. But this is tough stuff, and we're just going to have to see what happens.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say, Faith, do we have a chat on Streamlabs? I don't see anything there.
All right.
Okay, just YouTube.
All right, we'll get to that chat, but in the meantime, with the housing situation, we have about 30 to 40 million Americans at risk of being evicted from their homes, and it's actually happening right now. Now the thing is, unfortunately, this eviction crisis will continue to get worse, and sadly, as we continue to ignore it, as we have our politicians ignore it, because remember, AOC and Cori Bush were dancing when they supposedly got that moratorium stopped. People are still being evicted. People are still being kicked out of their homes. And that's going to be a frontline issue in this midterm election cycle. So remember, when these politicians say they want to make sure that you're still protected in your home, in your apartment, just take it with a grain of salt. But, this is going to become an ongoing thing, and the story's only going to get worse. And there's going to be still an increase of homelessness in this country. Owning a home or even renting an apartment now, that's the dream now. Can you even pull it off?
Can you even pull that off at all? And again, remember, the credit reporting bureaus are falling down on the job by not responding to requests. to remove errant information. And many landlords will use your credit report or tenant screening reports that use your credit report to make a decision about renting to you. And if you're not part of that credit system, and you don't have a good credit score, even though you may have a good job, even though you may have cash money, you can't find a place to live. And in many areas, and very desirable areas in this country, you could spend months living in some cases, extended stay hotels while you finally qualify to get into in any kind of housing. And the extended stay hotels are expensive.
Agreed. Yeesh.